Let us not dawdle, for there are grudges to settle, and new entries in the Dammer's Cron to right!
Howdy, howdy, Sidle here, and welcome to a guest battle featuring Shetland Apache. I came across one of Shetland's replays on the Discord that he runs, which is a huge Discord. I highly recommend you guys all go there to see tournament replays, tournaments that are out there, theory crafting. It's fantastic. Anyways, Shetland is playing the Dowie against, I think, what is a very common Doom Flayer Skaven build. Now, we recently had a game against the Skaven, playing Dr. K, and he had a very strong Doom Flayer build and just absolutely crushed us. So I've been working on different builds, and some of you know we've talked privately on different ways to actually look at trying to counter this build, and we have a fantastic game here. First, I'm going to go over the build by the Skaven. So we have Skaven slaves up front. This is really all you need as a Skaven. We know from our testing Skaven slaves are an excellent unit. He's got 5 of those up front. He has brought Queek Head Taker, and we've talked about Queek Head Taker is very popular in this matchup, even though he's probably not the best because so many Skaven players do want to take him. Now, Queek Head Taker, the key here is Queek has a bonus versus infantry of 35, which is absolutely ridiculous. Puts his melee attack up to 98 against melee infantry, which is why we talk about bringing a Rune Lord on his mount, and Thorgrim being a good pick in this match as well. And Queek also has trophy heads, of course, minus 45 melee defense, minus 26 melee attack for 36 seconds, which is a hex, which is very, very strong. Stand Your Ground, which is an excellent ability for the Skaven because of their low leadership, plus 16 leadership, plus 27 melee defense. Verminous Valor, it's an explosion that allows him to get away, plus 24% speed and plus 8 leadership. And he does have the Warp Shard armor. And if you have not watched Lore Master Sotek's amazing video on Belagar Ironhammer, it does feature the Warp Shard armor. Minus 5 melee defense and minus 18 armor around him. And Scurry Away, of course. And Queek is just an all-around really strong character. And, of course, you can already see that Shetland has Thorgrim Grudgebearer. Now, for his leadership, he does have a Plague Priest, probably with the summons, Vermintide, summons a unit of Clanrat, and Wither, minus 30 armor, very good ability against the Dowie. Plague Rash, every time he casts, minus 9 Vigor, which is also very strong, minus 12 Speed, which doesn't matter. And, of course, he has Frenzy and some other abilities. Now, it does have 1 Doom Wheel and 3 Doom Flayers. I'm not sure. I went through this battle a couple of times, but it was a few days ago. Okay, yeah, 3 Doom Flayers. Doesn't have the Regiment of Renown. And also for the build has 5 Skaven Slave Singers. Now, this is a tournament legal build. I believe this was played in a tournament, and Shetland is also a tournament legal build. In the middle, Storm Vermin, Sword and Shield, Death Runners, Storm Vermin, Sword and Shield, and I thought there was 2 units of Death Runners, perhaps not. And those Death Runners are very good because they sunder armor. That's their key ability here. Not concealment bombs. Where is it? Strengthen numbers. Oh, there it is. We go up to their ability up here. Weeping Blade for 35 seconds, minus 50% armor, which is so strong against the Dowie. Now, here is the build that Shetland brought. It is a full-on gyrocopter build. Now, this is the maximum you're allowed to take for gyrocopters in any form in the tournament rules. You're allowed to bring 2 single-unit entities and 4 regular gyrocopters. Now, he does have 3 gyrocopters with brimstone guns and 1 regular gyrocopter with a steam cannon. I'm going to go over some testing I did after this video very briefly. That steam cannon is important. So, steam cannon's back here, and he has 2 gyro bombers. Now, these are more important than you think in this matchup to try and get to the leadership, because I have done some testing again, and you really, really have to try and take out those big units with these gyro bombers. You're looking for their guns, not necessarily their bombs until late game. This is the key to his build, which is actually a brilliant concept, and I'll show you some of my builds after, but this is just better. All Longbeards with great weapons. 4 units of them, Longbeards with great weapons, and I think two has a chevron, 1 has a chevron. And for his leadership, he has Thorgrim Grudgebearer on his, well, of course he's always on his mount, the throne, and he has Stand Your Ground, for the melee defense, and he has Oath of Vengeance, which is too cheap not to bring, minus 27 melee defense for 44 seconds. And here's the key. Now, I've vacillated back and forth on these two abilities. Of course, he has the Great Book of Grudges for plus 9 melee attack, but he has also brought the High King. Essentially, this is for 200 gold. It makes you immune to being attacked, because any good player is just not going to attack you unless they have to. Then he has 2 Runesmiths, and of course they have the 22% damage resistance. Well, that's one ability, and the Rune of Wrath and Ruin to slow things down. The other Runesmith has a couple more abilities. That is the Rune of Wrath and Ruin, the Rune of Oath and Steel for that 30 armor, and the 22% damage resistance. So really, this is a tight little build, and we're going to get things going here. And I'm just going to make sure I turn that down. But it's a tight little build meant to be something that you can have strong buffing in this little group of armies. And he started everything back. So you notice he started his gyros over here, and he started them kind of over here, because typically there tends to be Skaven sort of back there, and we tried to do that in our battle and we never caught anything. But he's just going to come in, start shooting at Queek, start getting in some shots early with those brimstone guns. The steam cannon's not going to do anything against Queek Head Taker, and so you can bring the steam cannon in. You can see he's just pointing at these Plague Priest or the Skaven Slaves kind of around here, and he's got the Gyro Bombers going after the Plague Priest. Now, these Skaven Slaves, even though they have 1 armor piercing, they'll just be a harassing force. And really what he wants to do is come in here, maybe do a few bombing runs, get some shots off, try to slow down, check off this Plague Priest. He's already got some shots on Queek Head Taker, and just wants to harass. He wants to really force this blob in. And with this such a small attacking force, like this is such a small blob, you can look at Thorgrim's buff. It's getting everybody. Everybody. It's fantastic. It's absolutely getting everybody, so everyone has plus 9 melee attack. It's a very small group, and we have Rune of Negation, Rune of Oath and Steel, and a lot of stats. Now, these Doom Flayers are going to come in. The Longbeards with great weapons do have charge defense against large, but they are sort of the anti-large armor piercing unit that the Dowie have. We've talked about them. They do very well against the Doom Flayers. They can almost take them one-on-one if they're not charging back and forth. But here, so now he's got his gyrocopters lined up. You can see where he's aiming. He's aiming everything at this Doom Wheel. He's got the Oath of Vengeance on it. Just getting that extra damage we're getting on the gyrocopters. Now they are getting hit by the Skaven Slaves, but he's just taking away 100% focused on this Doom Wheel, and he's picking it away. Now these gyrocopters do not do a ton of damage, but if you just keep them focused, they will pick something away. Now the Steam Cannon is focused elsewhere. You can see Steam Cannon shooting the Skaven Slaves. Now Steam Cannon is actually really, really good at shooting unarmored things, get a ton of kills, and actually can really do a strong work against other things. But these Death Runners have already been really taken out of the game. The Skaven Slaves are in the back, and you've got everything in this blob. And this is great for the Dwarfs, because you got lots of leadership and you got lots of stats, and you got those Rune of Negations, even though the Wither's in there. Now the Gyro Bombers can come and focus on something else. So we got here, you can see we're focusing on this Plague Priest, and the Gyro Bombers are just making their runs. Now the Gyro Bombers are just shooting, but he's got the bombs with him. He can shoot them anytime. Now these bombs are really, really effective, especially in late games, but we've got all these blobs. So we'll see if we can get some shots in. There comes the bombs. You're going to start to see a lot of Skaven units rout, because those bombs are really, really devastating for Skaven leadership. And the gyrocopters steam guns is shooting at will at whatever he wants to focus on. And we got the brimstone guns are sort of back here. They got out of the way. And this whole leadership group for the Dowie, especially with Thorgrim up here on his mount, he is really hard to hit for Queek, because that bonus versus infantry doesn't count for Queek against Thorgrim. And you can see here we go. Queek Head Taker is taking a lot of damage. This Doom Wheel is taking a lot of damage. The Doom Flayers still kind of doing pretty good, but they're going to have a hard time against Thorgrim. Thorgrim is just an absolute tank in this battle, and he can, because he is not infantry size, he is large, and you can see the Gyro Bombers are just going to work, right? They can just run around, figure out what they're going to do. Now, there are lots of Skaven units, like the Jezzails, no problem taking out gyrocopters and gyro bombers. The rattling guns, no problem taking out gyrocopters and gyro bombers. But this is really, I think, the popular build, is to use those Doom Flayers against the Dowie. And this is really the counter build to get really make use of the Dowie strengths, which are great leadership. Now they're taking a bit of a beating here in the center, but getting some shots back with the gyrocopters. Now these Skaven slaves look like a lot, but you got to remember, Skaven leadership is iffy at best, and if you can get rid of a couple of key units, it's pretty much over. And you can see we're focusing on this Doom Wheel here, wanting to get it out of the match, and there it goes. Doom Wheel is gone. Now these really, the gyrocopters have barely been touched, even by all the Skaven slaves. You can see there's been focused on the gyro bomber. It's still flying around with impunity. There's, you know, really you need Howling Warp Gale, I think, as a Skaven in this matchup. And in my game against Dr. K, I think he did bring it. But we got more Doom Flayers going after this Runesmith. And, you know, the Runesmith will last for a little while at least. But the gyrocopters really can just pick their targets one by one. You can see right now they're going after Queek Head Taker, and as soon as Queek is gone, it's really going to make a huge difference. So now he is routing, and now here's the beauty. He can't get away from a gyrocopter. He's got 17 health left. He just needs one more shot, and there goes Queek Head Taker. Now the rest of the leadership is going to, these are a bunch of full health units are very close, but you can see they're all routing now because they don't have their leadership anymore. Now this doesn't mean that these Doom Wheels and Doom Flayers are going to rout right away, but these Skaven slaves and all the weaker units are going to start routing. We still got a Runesmith over here. We still got Thorgrim, and Thorgrim is really tough. He's got good abilities, and you can see like everything else down here has Thorgrim's buff of the. You can see, even though they're routing, they have this High King. +8 melee attack, +8% charge bonus, immune to psychology. Not that the Longbeards need it, but they get close to Thorgrim, and now Thorgrim's going to double buff them if they can get anywhere near close. But that extra 8 melee attack really does matter. So yeah, he's going to be able to chase off sort of these units. The Doom Flayers are, but meanwhile, the Dowie can just come in, get after these units one by one. Just they don't have to shoot them, they can just charge in. This is one of the great things about gyrocopters, is their rear charge is actually pretty devastating, even though it doesn't do a ton of damage, and Thorgrim can sort of pick where he wants to go. So obviously you got to route around here and sort of focus on these guys with what ammunition there is left, and you can rear charge, you can just definitely cycle charge, but the Skaven players just trying to mosey that Runesmith off the field. And now the Dowie are really trying to focus on these Doom Flayers, and they don't have good leadership. They have terrible leadership. You know, one rear charge, and there he goes. See, there's a gyrocopter coming in for a charge. Here comes a gyrocopter for another charge. One rear charge. There she goes. And the gyrocopters can actually hold these Doom Flayers still, which is absolutely fantastic. You know, the Doom Flayers are really, really hard to pin down, but the gyrocopters actually can do it, and you can see that. Now the gyrocopter is getting away, but now we have one Doom Flayer here, routing Doom Flayer here, and these guys you don't really have to worry about. He's just going to come pick these guys off one by one, to come in for the charge, get some shots in, and that rear charge is going to immediately rout because the Doom Flayers have very poor leadership, even more so than most. And now he's just going to reset the charge and come for this healthy Doom Flayer. Has a ton of health. Just can't handle the charges though. There's just no way. Got a little help from the Runesmith, and again, all these units have Thorgrim's charge bonus. So that charge bonus is actually something. On a 8% charge bonus matters a little bit more on a gyrocopter. It's not like the charge bonus is awesome, but it makes a difference, and their weapon strength and their melee attack. So this is sort of a really nice result. The gyrocopter, the basic one, is it's over here fighting these Skaven slaves. They can fight Skaven slaves all day because they have no armor piercing. He just wants to gang up on these Doom Flayers one at a time. They have terrible leadership, and he can just charge them to death, really, because the Doom Flayer can do nothing. You know, the gyrocopters are big, they're large, so their anti-infantry bonus means nothing against the gyrocopter. It means nothing against Thorgrim. And all these units are getting Thorgrim's immunity to the psychology buff. Not that it really matters, because the Doom Flayers do not cause fear or terror. And way over here we have a gyro bomber. Must have taken one of these units off the field and just forgotten about him. But you know, all Shetland wants to do here is just control the pace, and he can get rid of these Skaven slaves very, very easily, but he just really wants to finish off these Doom Flayers. You can see he's sort of setting it up so he can sort of corral them. As soon as he gets into the Skaven slaves are gone. They cannot handle any kind of pressure, even with the Doom Flayers there. And the thing is, the Gyrocopters really don't have to worry on the ground against the Doom Flayers. Just, you know, they're not going to get hit. Doom Flayers have really poor melee attack. They're only 27 melee attack unless they have that massive bonus versus infantry. They come in, get the surround here. Thorgan comes in. Everyone is double buffed up. A Gyrocopter with a Brimstone gun has 47 melee attack. When are you ever going to see that? And 33 melee defense. Absolutely fantastic. This really, really strong build, and you can see the Skaven leadership just can't help it. So he's used really the Gyrocopters very, very wisely in this fight to take out key units one at a time, even though it's pretty slow. And in the late game, even with no ammunition, the Gyrocopters do very, very well. So we're going to take a look at the end plates on that. Very well played by Shetland Apache, and I love the name. Like, Shetland Apache, he is a dwarf player, and he's got an inner dwarf, and you can tell by his name, Engelbert Grumperdink. That's so awesome. Oh my god. Fantastic. Love it. Now, these Longbeards sold their lives dearly. They played, you know, they did good, and about as good as you can get. I'll show you some of the concepts in builds in a bit, but very strong. 41 kills for Thorgan, but he was an absolute beast in this matchup. The Runesmiths, 28 and 39, did very good. 68, 118, 56, and 41. That was mostly against slaves, but very well done. And here's this regular Gyrocopter. It's so good in this matchup. 216 kills. And I know that's against low-level units, but it matters when you want to get them routing. Down the Brimstone guns, 53, 18, and 38. And the Gyro Bombers, 29 and 27. But these Gyro Bombers, they were not brought for their bombs. I mean, the bombs are good, and they can go on some bombing runs relatively quickly. They are brought to bring the maximum amount of air force to focus down a single target, because they're sort of, their guns can do some damage. And I have some builds with the Regiment of Renown. I will show them to you after. Now, green had a, you know, I think this is a pretty common themed build. If you saw my game against Dr. K, I think his build was outstanding, and I think there's an even more devastating and optimized build, which I'll show you in a little bit, that you can build. But really, Quick Head Taker, not optimum in this matchup, but lots of people like him because you can't bring him in any other matchup. You know, the Dowie are just so slow, and he does have Dwarf Gouger and everything else like that. And of course, a Plague Priest with summons. Skaven Slaves, 5 Skaven Slaves I would recommend in every single match, because Skaven Slaves are a fantastic unit. And no Clan Rats, though. Clan Rats are really strong too. 1 Death Runner, 2 Stormrunner with Sword and Shield. Don't really need them in this matchup. Your power is all with there, but you know, they're not bad. The Death Runners are good, and the 5 Skaven Slave Slingers. And you could see the Skaven Slave Slingers. Shetland was good with his gyros to keep them out of their range. They can sort of whittle away. But really, Skaven Slave Slingers are for Slayers. That's why you bring them. And then the Doom Flayers. 3 Doom Flayers, 25, 21, and 31. And then Doom Wheel, which he focused first, only had 7. So I thought that was a fantastic and interesting matchup. I am going to go out here, and we're going to go look at some builds. Awesome game, Shetland. Fantastic to watch. I love it. And this is, again, I'll go to my custom battle build, and we're going to talk about that for those of you who just wanted to watch the battle. The video's done. We're going to be another 10 minutes or 15 minutes of just chatting, and we'll talk about these builds. So get out of here and exit out of here, and we'll go battles, custom battle. Now, this is sort of the lineup I had been looking at, or something like it. I'm going to pick some of the lineups I'd looked at. So for Skaven, I think I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 builds I've been playing with, and I think this might be the very first one. Yeah, so this is the first build that I played with, getting Throny Ironbrow in there for the Fear and Terror against the Skaven. With the Rune Lord, I did not have him on the mount. I talked about that, and I did have bolt throwers and a couple gyrocopters to find hidden units. And really, this was supposed to, my Rangers and Ulthar's Raiders were meant to try and get his Doom Flayers, but I just got crushed. It was an absolutely devastating build. I think the build that was difficult Skaven right here. Whoops. Why is that not picking that up? Huh. For some reason, that Skaven build is not working at all. Load army setup. Okay, well, we'll, I guess I'll just pick up a Skaven build. Okay, so, really, where is it? Let's see if I can actually get back up here. Okay, so, really, I think, what? Creekhead Taker, Warlord, Gracier. Where is he in a new Clan Pestilence? Skrulk, Gracier. Huh. I don't know. Anyways, I'm not Gracier. Tretch. I can't seem to find the guy I'm looking for. So maybe I have something loaded up wrong. So anyways, the unit I'm looking for is not Queek, but it's the unit. It is the Warlord, the Warlock. Not is it Ikit Claw, and he can ride his Doom Wheel. Do I have the regiments of renown? Maybe I have something not loaded up correctly here. Yeah, clearly I do not have something loaded. All right, well, I'll have to take a look at why that's all set up that way. Something's wrong. Anyways, I'll go and look at the builds. This is the original build. It got crushed. Didn't work out. So I started looking at different sorts of builds that I could put together. We go here, and we get versus Skaven Slayers. This is another Clan Angrid build. I thought, well, maybe I just bring a ton of Slayers and some Bolt Throwers and just try and defend them, and bring a Thane to slow things down with minus 18% speed, and really slow things down with the Rune Lord and the Runesmith, to try and get my Slayers some time on those Doom Flayers, and otherwise use my Bolt Throwers in case he brings Jezzails, and use the Bolt Throwers specifically for Doom Wheels. And I did play some games against, like I was testing it against the AI, because that's sort of the fastest way to just test some concepts and how they feel. I looked at then I thought, well, maybe we'll make it a Lord Sniping build with Thorgrim and one single Runesmith and some Miners and Dwarf Warriors to really just to hang on for as long as possible. And I just had Thorgrim with Oath of Vengeance and Great Book of Grudges in this build, and the Runesmith I have with Rune of Wrath and Ruin and Rune of Negation, and I believe I brought the leadership for all these low leadership units, and really brought 4 gyrocopters with brimstone guns, and gyro bomber, and the Skyhammer really for that regular missile damage, which is higher. Really, how fast could these 4 units snipe out the Lord? Just didn't feel like enough. I couldn't get enough damage on the chaff units, which is why I thought, well, maybe we could look at that. So and then I built, and I know I talked to a few of you privately about this sort of build, and some of you had asked about gyrocopters in this build, so I was definitely playing around with the concept, you can see. And so I thought bringing 2 gyrocopters with brimstone guns to really knock out those weaker units quickly would be good. Again, I looked at different versions of Thorgrim, bringing him with the Stand Your Ground as well, still not High King. And we're looking at a few of the other little builds here that we went through. And I don't know if I have Thorgrim with... I will vacillate back and forth in this High King. I actually now, seeing how well Shetland's build works, I think I might put that into my build. So I thought about another build just to really get after them and have Giant Slayers ready and handy. I don't know if that'd be really good because of all the Skaven Slaves and pressure, but Giant Slayers are amazing against Doom Flayers. And we've got 2 more builds to sort of look at what I was testing and what I've been working on. And again, a little bit less on the Giant Slayers, 1 more Dragonback Slayer, and again, Thorgrim without this High King. And I did one last build. I just only had 4 gyrocopters in this build, and one last build with a very wide build. So I thought, instead of the gyrocopters, this is my sort of last build is going extremely wide and bringing a pocket of Thunders and Bolt Throwers and making them come to me, and bringing Giant Slayers and Dwarf Warriors, great weapons in the background, and bringing Thorgrim here with High King, and bringing him here with the Great Book of Grudges, so that if he gets focused down, everyone gets +8 melee attack. If he doesn't, I get to get this +9 melee attack, plus he is large and immune to all this anti-infantry shenanigans. Anyways, I know I had talked to a few of you about different ideas. I hope you love this game from Shetland. I think it demonstrates that the concept of gyrocopters is very strong in this build. Now, this will could change the meta, change the way that Skaven play against the Dowie. I doubt it, because that Doom Flayer build is incredibly strong, and you could see it was a tough game, even though Shetland brought a very strong army. But I think this is a time for the gyrocopters to shine. Now, they can bring Howling Warp Gale very cheaply, and they can bring units that will really shut down gyrocopters. But that's the idea, which is why you bring, at least when you look at the later builds, well, the later builds I have, this is the reason you bring, a couple units, or at least one unit of gyrocopters with this regular gun and your brimstone guns, so you can just take your 4 units, or however you want, 6, and if he does have Warplock Jezzails, you just go right after them and you can knock them out real quick. Same with rattling gunners and stuff. You just really have to kind of commit all in and get rid of them real fast. Same if they have artillery. So anyways, love the concept, and Shetland sent me two more replays. I'm going to have a good look at them as soon as I can. I have a few more replays I want to have a look at, but I absolutely love this game. It is a demonstration of a great dwarf mind in action, and a really fun game to watch. And Shetland, I'd ask if he mind if I cast one of his games. He said, no, I've been playing this sort of Thorgrim / gyrocopter build and tweaking it for a little bit now, because this Doom Flayer build against the Dowie is so strong and probably very prevalent, because obviously Dr. K played it against me, and I think that's sort of going to be the standard build going forward. So now all of you Dowie players and Dowie lovers have a build against the Skaven. It's a tough build to play, ain't no lie. Gyrocopters come with a ton of micro, but the beauty of what Shetland did was he said, listen, I'm going to reduce the micro by reducing the amount of units that are actually on the field, and really just make it easier to manage what I have. And this is how he's done it, right? He really makes it very simple by minimizing the total units on the field. And I think it's 4 out there. We're going to look at how these are all sort of set up. Forge Fire would actually be a reasonable thing to bring in here, but I don't think he brought that. 30 armor there, and no leadership, no hammer of character draw. Sort of something like that. I think what did he have? 2? Yeah, just 1. Something like this for the build. And you can see it's a nice tight build, and really he makes this easier to manage by having all his ground package within earshot of each other, so that he doesn't have a really wide line. He doesn't have any ground units that are going to be very vulnerable, because they all have charged defense against large. And they have, obviously, they can encourage each other, and he does that. It's just picking the right target with the gyrocopters, whittling them down one at a time, 100% focus. You saw how Shetland did it, and this is something that you can obviously do too. So love the build. Hope you loved it. Love to hear from you in the comments. I always love comments. And for those of you that I have been talking to privately, I hope you really enjoyed this game. I really loved it when I watched it, because it is nice to see a high-level player like Shetland picking up an idea like this and making it really strong. And it's a build I think that all of you can enjoy. With that said, I will see you soon.